glovies. Mwah. Thank you. Okay, let's see if I can get this working. Usually I set up the droid cam in advance, but today I was like, no, I'm sure it'll be working. It's worked every other time. Why wouldn't it be working now? Okay, let's see. What's happened? Aha. So, DroidCam is an app on your phone, and even though I have my phone plugged in, if the screen goes dark for whatever reason, it kind of turns itself off. So, there we go. Now we should have no problems. Hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody who's rejoining us, and in case anybody new here doesn't know what is about to happen, I am going to be working with my book collection to try and clean them, continuing to sort of detox from the mycotoxin outbreak, infestation, infiltration, whatever you want to call it. So to do that, we have our handy dandy bowl of industrial strength cleaning vinegar. We have our abrasive little scrubby brush here. Oh, uh-oh. Something's broken. What happened? Let's see. Nope, the camera went down again. Let me try. Okay, let's see. That looks good. Yoink. So today, just gonna be kind of going through the collection and some more, you know, when I say collection, like, I collect books this way some people used to collect stamps. You know, so we are looking at, a big tote. Let me see if I can just kind of quickly just turn us around here. So we've got all of this, right? Ignore the Pop-Tarts. That's not intentional. And then at least one more tote that size waiting to be addressed at some point. So we have got our work cut out for us before we're going to be anywhere near done with these books. But I'm gonna grab my extra paper towel here, right, and then use this one for dabbing the brush off so that I'm not just like coating my entire desk surface in vinegar this time. And I'm sorry if you guys are hearing like a whirring in the background. That is the sound of a fan and dehumidifier. So we are very fancy. Unfortunately, it does mean we might be a little noisy. And then we're just going to use this to wipe down the surfaces of the pieces that we use. And of course, what dream for cleaning wouldn't start with the putting on of the gloves, the personal protective equipment here. So let's get that going. Can anybody peek the fit? Got my cute little deedlies. Then let's get this one on. Last time I did not put these away correctly, unfortunately, and so the lining in this one is like kind of stuck in the fingers, which is annoying. There we go. Okay, I have to kind of like turn the lining inside out. See, and then like turn it backwards to get the fingers to be not like stuck in place. So let me just get that. Let this be a lesson to me, future self. Don't put away your gloves without making sure that they are properly stowed. Okay, so this should now let me put my fingers in the actual glove. That would be nice. it's reversed. Maybe I'm wrong and it actually needs to be opposite that. Let me try turning the lining inside out. See what happens. I like these gloves, so I would like to not have to tear them if I can avoid it. But we shall see, because I'm also not really the most patient person in the world. So what this isn't exactly what I had planned. My evening. I don't know what to do. Let's see. Maybe if I like put my hand in it from the top. Let's try that. Well, there's the first hole in the lining, so that's not a good sign. There we go. And one more. Let's try it again. Okay, so the theory does work. I just have to get the last couple ones to fit. Just to give you guys an idea, I think the last time I did this, I took the glove off without holding the finger linings. And so the finger linings came off like an inside-out sock when you put your socks off, right? And now I can't get them back into the extremely narrow, really small fingers of the glove because I have really small hands. So I am just turning the lining like sort of inside out, sort of right side out. Like, look how bizarre this looks. But if I can put my fingers in it from the top, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, hands in, and then put the thumb in. Okay, and now push it through. There we go. Voila! Okay, so note to self, when taking these off, absolutely make sure that when you are pulling them off, you pull from the fingertips and make sure the lining is there, because otherwise you're gonna have a bad time. I do have a backup pair as well that I haven't even worn yet. They're brand new, because I just knew that probably something was gonna happen. I'm always getting like water and stuff in my gloves, so fear not, there is a backup just in case. Okay. Personal protective equipment, check. Paper towels, check. Are good to go. Let's just get this moved over. Okay. So, last time we were doing a lot of kind of witchy books, magic books, tarot books from the collection. I'm just scanning the top layer here. And it's looking like we're going to be mostly in for a lot of manga. So let me just get a couple of these paperbacks started and then we'll get into it. First up here, though, we have Robin McKinley's The Hero and the Crown, which is actually a Newbery Medal winner. Um, for those of you guys who don't know, a Newbery Award, named after John Newbery, is basically a children's literature award. Um, and books get it basically for being like outstanding in American literature for children. And it's a pretty old like establishment. Like I remember even when I was like in middle school, in elementary school, Newbery Awards were like already a thing. Um, so I don't know how long exactly they've been going for, but let me see if I can get a little bit more light in here. Ugh, down. Yeah, that's a little better. Okay. But as you can see, this book has like a beautiful illustration, full color on the front. That is from a scene in the book where the titular hero of the Hero and Crown fame is battling, of course, a dragon. Very classic here. Um, and I love this book, and I really love it. Has like a sequel, sort of, although they were published out of order. So there's the sequel is technically The Blue Sword, but in my case, I read Hero and the Crown first and The Blue Sword second. And that is because they are, even though they're set in the same place and they are on the same timeline, right? Um, they are like hundreds of years apart in that timeline. So you really can read them in any order. There's some like allusions to the events in Hero and the Crown in The Blue Sword. But like I said, The Blue Sword was published first, so it was always meant to be read in that order, sort of. You know, you kind of read The Blue Sword and get all these mysterious references to this thing that happened hundreds of years ago. And then, of course, in the next book, we get to go on that adventure and find out exactly what it is that happened. Female protagonists, swords and sorcery, highly, highly recommend. Robin McKinley is an amazing author, and her writing is almost poetry in prose. Okay. Sure, we'll do this one. Heaven's Official Blessing. Some people might recognize it from the anime I mean, I guess it's not technically an anime. There is an animated series, though. It's a Chinese media, though. And very exciting that it is getting its flowers. I am never not nervous about the author and the writer, who there are just always rumors about, like, she's going to jail, she's this, that, the other thing. Like, nobody ever knows what's going on with her, I'm convinced. As long as she finishes the story, gives them a happy ending. They deserve it. They've been through so much. Pages cleaned off. Good. Okay, here we go. And it begins. I am not a completionist when it comes to manga collecting. I know there are some people who like want to have the whole series, every issue, you know, upwards of hundreds of volumes, and more power to them. You know, we're on the third session of me cleaning my own book collection, so who am I to judge? But at the same time, I kind of feel like not all manga volumes are completely necessary. Like for me, so I just want to own the ones that have my favorite parts. You know, my favorite scenes or my favorite characters, or those moments that I really could see myself wanting to flip back to at some point in the future and just like, you know, be able to look at again. And that's why I randomly have Black Cat number 15, right? Like, as opposed to 1, 2, 3, 4. Um, because in this volume, there's a really cool fight scene that I really, really like. And I think is very cool. So, that's why I just have this one. I might have a couple others, but and as we go through, you'll see more. This series is kind of the exception. It's called From Far Away. It's a really old, and I say really old, but I mean like 80s and 90s, right? Like, look at the art style. Isekai. And it's actually back from a part of a time when during the trope's evolution, it was primarily female characters getting isekai'd, right? Because, like, girls couldn't have adventures in the real world. So they had to go on, like, magical journeys in order to go places where they're allowed to do things. And it's weird. We've just seen a major shift in the last, like, 10, 15 years away from that model of isekai and towards the way more, what I would say, like, saturated version that we're kind of all familiar with now, which is way more of, like, an escapist fantasy, a power fantasy where, like, oh, MC is hit by a truck and everybody thinks that he's the weakest in the new fantasy world. But it turns out, oh my god, he's got the super secret extra strong double magic. Oh no! And then everyone falls in love with him and it defeats the Demon King and everything's great. And of course, there are some really good examples of this, and there are some really good examples of this being subverted or used for lulz. That time I got reincarnated as a slime, looking at you. But this is definitely a callback to where the trope kind of more started. Magical Knights, Rayearth style. Gosh. And then, of course, talk about emotional damage. We've got Fruits Baskets 22 here. I don't remember which one this one is specifically. But again, we know something happens. Oh, it might be the last one. Are the last ones? Back muffin. Yeah, emotional damage. And everything is fine. Listen, friends, patriots, if you or a loved one is reading Fruits Basket, please don't hesitate, to reach out. Ask if they're doing okay. Especially if it's their first read through and they're, at that part. Just check in. It can't hurt. Edges wiped down really good. And off it goes. Oh. This is a cute little series. It's a shoujo. I think there are only like 2 volumes total, maybe. It's really short. But it's kind of funny. Basically, this girl is like kind of a tomboy. She's kind of like just almost got like superhuman like strength and durability. So she's just like super strong and fit and like hardy, and yet it's like bad because she doesn't want to be known as like being like that. She wants to be like a girly girl, and dainty and delicate, and then like she's just going about her business, and I forget what she does. I think she like stops a car accident or something, and this what does she say? What do they call him? Basically like a mafia romance. This guy sees her and he's like, I must have her. She's perfect. She's unkillable. And it goes from there, as he tries to convince her that the very thing that she doesn't like about herself is the thing that he finds the most appealing. Oh, here we go. Okay. And of course, there was no escaping the Naruto craze. I was never, like, you know, so into the series that I did any, like, cosplays or, you know, went to do anything beyond just, like, owning a couple volumes of the manga, because they also started to show up at resale bookstores everywhere. I don't know if you saw that price tag just now, but it was like $3 when I bought it, and it's, you know, usually a $10 book. So the other nice thing about collecting manga is that a lot of the times they do pop up for cheap like that. So that's kind of most of the reason I have so many volumes of Naruto. The other reason is that, of course, like I said, there are just some fights and some arcs that I really am nostalgic for, and I want to go back and revisit at some points. You know, not the whole series, certainly not. And of course, this is the manga, so it's not even gonna have most of, like, the filler content. But yeah, I think this is the Chunin exams arc, it looks like. Yeah, there she is. So this was probably, because of that, those fights were very cool and fun. Little fun arc. Oh god. And then we have the volume that broke me as a human being. Okay. Just look how sweet this is. Anybody who knows Naruto, just this image is both, like, completely devastating and also completely healing. Like, I don't, gosh. What could have been, right? What could have been. But I'm pretty sure this is the volume where, spoiler alert, in case you are 10 years behind, they kind of, like, do this weird, like, Anakin Force Ghost meeting between Naruto and his parents, and it's just so cathartic. It's such, like, utter emotional fan service, but I eat that shit up. It's so good. Yeah. Also, Kushina is one of my favorite characters of all time, and I'm mad now that they made her so awesome only for her to be dead for the entirety of the series. Does that sound like someone we know? Beck Muffin? Just giving us this awesome, amazing female character who's, like, super badass and cool, and then just like, whoops, nope, she's dead. You can't have nice things. Oh, what's that? That super cool female protagonist you thought you were gonna get early on in the story? Nope. Think again. Jebaited. Look at them. Okay, anyway, I'm done. Okay. Ooh. We have a twofer. So this is volumes 1 and 2 of Mugen Spiral. Another little short series. I think it's only 2 chapters long to begin with. It's really weird. It definitely feels like they were setting up for a much longer series, and then maybe just, like, it didn't get renewed or something because the ending is super duper rushed. And doesn't really feel like it addresses all of the things that they brought up in the series. But, But it's like another paranormal romance, essentially. You know, you've got our main heroine who is, like, you know, got spiritual powers vis-a-vis, like, Kagome. And then you've got, like, her demon friend guy who can turn into a cat, I think. I don't know why there's an eagle on the cover, that has nothing to do with anything. Um, but you know, they hunt demons, they exorcise ghosts, they get into some shenanigans, they fall in love, as you do. Ooh, this does not look good. So you see the, it's kind of hard to see with the shadow here, but I don't know if you can see the speckling on the bottoms of these pages. That is very not good. That is not what we want to see here. You know, of course, part of it is just going to be the ink from the manga itself, right, being printed. But what I'm talking about are these very obvious, like, speckles that are kind of dark and white patches. And so I hate to do it, but I think what I am going to do is use the scrub brush on these page edges. Just to be safe. I really do not want to be dealing with anything contaminated. So we are just going to scrub these page edges really, really well. Just as well as we possibly can. And let the acetic acid do its work, right? That discoloring might never go away. We might always end up with slight staining, but that is okay as long as there is no toxicity. You know, if it's just a bit of staining, that's fine. Okay. Ooh, back to our books. Up next, we have Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. Now also a Amazon, Hulu series? I don't know. One of those streaming platforms picked it up. And I believe it is David Tennant playing Crowley, the demon. Oh, Amazon, says Beck Muffin. Thank you. And he's fantastic. I haven't really watched the whole series. I'm kind of waiting for it to be over before I binge it, I'm sure. But for those of you who don't know, Terry Pratchett is a fantasy comedy writer for the most part, and Neil Gaiman is just regular fantasy. But he loves folklore and he loves mythology, and so the two of them teamed up to write this satirical fantasy adventure based on the Christian prophecy of the end of days, like that the Antichrist will rise and blah blah blah, second coming, blah blah blah. I know I'm being very blasé about it, but I promise you, it's a riot. It's a laugh and a half. Spence! Hello, Spence! How are you? Good to see you. Or, well, read your comments here. I hope you're having a good weekend. But yeah, I definitely recommend the book. It's so funny. Terry Pratchett is just got a sense of humor like a knife's edge. I mean, he is so sharp with his jokes. And Neil Gaiman, of course, just adds that fantasy element. You know, he's the author of Coraline and American Gods, The Sandman, that kind of thing. Super, super good. Highly recommend it. Yeah, nice. Beck Muffin says she's read the book and watched season 1 and recommends them both. Here we have another book of poetry. This is called Concerning the Body of the Beloved by Gregory Orr. And this is one of, if not like my all-time favorite poetry collection. Gregory Orr just has a way with words, and this collection specifically has to do a lot with death and grieving. You know, when he was young, I think there was like a hunting accident or something, and Gregory Orr accidentally shot and killed his younger brother, I think. And so like he just he's been grieving basically like his whole life from that. And in his book, in this poetry collection, he basically presents the thesis that the beloved, aka whoever it is that you miss, that you love, sort of exists outside of time and space when you write about them. You're sort of, and he likens it to the myth of Isis, who, you know, collected the body parts of, I think, like Osiris, and, you know, put him back together and breathed life back into him. Gregory Orr's thesis is that through the written word and through song and through story and poetry, you can do something sort of similar, where you can resurrect the beloved by piecing together the body. I'm gonna go ahead and read one of these because they're so good, you guys. I mean, they're not marked, it's just one continuous anthology that's kind of split it into parts. There's not like a title to them, but I want to see if I can find the one that's basically like his thesis. It says, resurrection of the body of the beloved, which is the world, which is the poem of the world, the poem of the body. Mortal ourselves and filled with awe, we gather the scattered limbs of Osiris, that he should live again, that death not be oblivion. Like, okay, Gregory, go off, I guess. And yeah, here's another one that just specifically referencing that myth. The beloved is dead, limbs, and all the body's miraculous parts scattered across Egypt, stained with dark mud. We must find them, gather them together, bring them into a single place, as an anthologist might collect all the poems that matter into a single book. A book which is the body of the beloved, which is the world. And I just love that. I love the concept of that, you know, the idea that, like, if you're grieving someone and you miss them so much, like, you can kind of try to resurrect them in a way through art, and through language and writing. And I think Gregory would agree that it doesn't even really have to be your own, right? Like, he wrote this anthology himself because he's a poet, you know, for his loss, but I'm sure Gregory Orr would agree that, like, if you just hear a song on the radio or you come across a really neat story online and you kind of recognize a piece of the person you're missing in that piece of art, that would also count for you collecting the body of the beloved. There's one more that talks about the grave. That's really, really good. It's like the grave is a door. But I don't know where exactly it is. So we'll do one more. I read the book for years and never understood a word. Scrawled in its margins, wrote my own versions of what I read there, but never got a thing right. Didn't understand that each poem was a magic spell, was a voice, and under that voice, an echo. That was the spell. As if each poem clearly spoke the word death, and the echo said life. Echo roiling the poem's surface, as the angel was said to trouble the waters of Bethesda's pool in Jerusalem, so that the first person to enter the water after the angel had been there was healed. Go off, okay? Husband says, how goes the quest to murder the mold? We are murdering. We're trucking along at a steady clip here. We're working our way through the manga collection here. But I have to take these little breaks to stop and nerd out with you guys over them, because otherwise I would just get depressed. I would just think too much about how it is that all this has to be done and get depressed. So I'm really glad you guys are here to help make this into a fun little show and tell exercise, as opposed to just a totally depressing, very stinky cleaning routine. You found mold in your basement? Oh no, Spence. Spence, just so you know, a little bit of mold is gonna be present in almost every building. I mean, it's just almost impossible to keep completely at bay. And on top of that, a lot of molds and a lot of fungus growth that you see in the home isn't actually producing the neurotoxin called mycotoxin, right? A lot of mold and mildew release spores that can be dangerous when inhaled, especially if you have allergies. And a lot of mold and mildew can release other kinds of chemicals that you definitely want to test and make sure that it's safe. But otherwise, if it's just your kind of more run-of-the-mill infestation outbreak, then chances are you're going to have no trouble at all dealing with it. You are just going to have to, use a bit of bleach on the surfaces that it has been growing on, and make sure that you try to keep that area as dry as you possibly can moving forward. I recommend these guys, right? So this is Damp Rid, and this is just one of the types of containers it comes in. But basically there are these moisture absorbing little granules inside. There is a porous opening, and the crystals draw the moisture from the air. They trap it in this chamber below. This is a brand new one that I just opened today, so that's why there's no water in it. But the water will fill up into the base, and then you just can either switch out the granules, or you can just replace the whole thing completely. But I really, really recommend these if you are trying to deal with moisture in a space, a closet, a garage, a shed, a basement, anywhere where you might have just temperature and moisture control issues, and it's just not really possible to do anything about. I have this specifically right now, not because I'm still in a damp environment, but because my books are airing out, right? They are drying off, especially after being doused in vinegar. And I just want to make sure that they all dry properly and don't have any residual moisture, wicking up. And so these are really helpful, in addition to the dehumidifier that I have running. You guys can probably hear in the background. But yeah, Spence, you can get a swab test kit for mold and mildew online for like $50. Basically, they send you a kit with a sealed swab to take a sample, and you just take it kind of like a cotton tip, and you just roll it or rub it up against whatever it is you're seeing, and then you put the little cap on, seal it up in the envelope that they're going to give you, and send it in the mail. And the lab receives the sample, they run it through their DNA test, they run it through their mass spec, and they will call you and give you a report on whether or not they found anything dangerous in your sample. So whether or not your mold or mildew is actually producing a dangerous toxin, and they screen for more than just mycotoxin, so you can get one that screens for all of them. And they will then advise next best steps. If you do have an infestation that is producing dangerous mycotoxin or other types of chemicals, at that point they are probably going to advise that you call in a specialist, somebody with industry knowledge who is going to be able to truly come in and make sure the space is safe. You're not going to want to deal with anybody who um, does not take the extra steps to do the remediation properly. There are plenty of people out there, as I've firsthand account experience, who are more than happy to just paint over, the visible, just, staining and then call it a day. And when you are talking about a deadly neurotoxin that is colorless, odorless, and extremely airborne and easily absorbed by other porous material, that's just not going to cut it. So good luck, Spence. I really hope it's not that big of a deal. I hope it just ends up being a totally benign, sort of regular water, based mold, and that you are not in any kind of imminent danger. Or your belongings, right? But other than like a dehumidifier and the damp rid, the next best thing is going to be to make sure that anything that you are concerned about, anything that you care about, is covered. And that can be either with like a dust sheet. I don't know if you remember those old episodes of Scooby-Doo or whatever, where they would go into an old mansion and literally all the furniture would just be covered in drapes or sheets. Something like that could work. You just don't want to leave anything open to the air where spores could, come and settle on the surfaces. You want to just keep everything as covered as possible. Oh man, the drywall. That's rough. It's rough. If it's in the walls and in the HVAC, that's rough. I just, fingers crossed, hope that you get somebody who is really professional, who can walk you through the whole thing and help you, keep as much of your property intact as possible. But yeah, that's a good idea. Replacing the drywall, because it's infested, especially if you can't necessarily fix the conditions in the environment. Basements and bathrooms and sheds and stuff like that can be really, really tough. Garages, because they're not really finished construction, they're not sealed, and they're not really meant to be. So it can be very difficult to keep those spaces from becoming contaminated with mold or mildew. But doing a good job, moving along. Oh, this one's going to be kind of a tough one. So this is a pretty old manga. It's called Land of the Blindfolded. This is clearly an ex-library copy. You might notice that they've used the Dewey Decimal System here. I think that is because manga, the way they are, they're serial, and so if you had it just by author last name, there would be a bunch all out of order. And so they do this instead, I think, because you have the year 2004, V1, Volume 1, and I just noticed that they started doing that specifically for manga and comics and graphic novels, as those started to become more and more available in libraries. This series is one that I read a really long time ago. I'm not really sure if I necessarily would recommend it today. It's kind of very bizarre. It's about this girl who has the power to briefly catch glimpses of the future. She's able to see visions of the future or of the past. I can't really remember. And she can do this when she kind of touches somebody. So she can grab your hand and then see a vision of your past or something. And she calls this phenomena as if everybody in the world is blindfolded. And when she, touches someone's hand, she's able to lift her blindfold off for a temporary amount of time and see the truth. Right, so that's why it's called Land of the Blindfolded. And the series starts when she, for the first time ever, meets somebody else who has her same power, or a power like hers. I'm foggy on the details. But unlike her, she's always trying to use her powers to help people. He never wants to use his powers at all, and she is confused by this. So they start a relationship. It's very, very interesting. I think I held on to this mostly because of how their powers work. I had never really encountered something like that up to this point, and I thought how the narrative used it was pretty cool. It's always difficult as a writer to work with time travel plots, right? Like you kind of have to like decide what kind of time travel you're dealing with. Is it determinism? Is it, you know, are we doing time loops? Are we doing paradoxes? Are we doing, you know what I mean? Is it Doctor Who, or is it something more rigid, like you know, step on a butterfly type thing? So I think that is why I held on to this one. Let's see, we're starting to come out of the manga section. There's still more, of course, but we're starting to get to the next kind of section of paperbacks. Oh goodness. Naruto number 4. On the back of the drywall, tearing down all the drywall anyway as part of a remodel. Okay, it was like 2 square inches. That's not too, okay. Any amount of growth at all is bad, but that's not so bad. I'm glad that you were able to catch it at this juncture. Yeah, okay. So, Naruto number 4. Yeah, I don't know how any of us as like middle school, elementary schoolers were supposed to watch this first arc of Naruto where fucking Haku dies and just be normal for the rest of our lives, right? Like they really put that on TV, like public access TV, and we're like, yeah, this is gonna have no impact on anyone. Like, first of all, Haku is like non-binary at the very least, if not just like fully trans, and they really thought like, yeah, this isn't gonna cause anybody to ask any serious questions, right? Not on this Pride Month, Eve. And then of course just like the totally normal relationship that all of them have, like, I would die for you. I just couldn't help it. Like, yeah, that's normal. That wasn't gonna rewrite the wiring of my brain or anything. It's fine. Okay. Looking good, looking good. Okay. And a couple more volumes, and then we'll move on to another fun. As if it was inevitable. Listen. I'm just saying. They really put that shit on the TV and were like, this is fine. How was I supposed to go to school the next day? I'm having feelings. What is it? I'm doing things, Laurie. Stuff and things. Get these edges wiped off. This is a relatively newer edition. So this is, I'm not too worried about. There's no staining on the edges of the pages. So we're looking good. Okay, well, this one's gonna be a little tricky. Um, so in college, I actually took a class about writing memoirs. And of course, the final of the class was to write our own, and we even like self-published them, quote unquote, into these little chapbooks. And so this is mine. It was on display in the library, in the school's library for like the entire last term. And it's called Don't Decide Today. And yes, I know, I'm extra. Yeah, totally. Anybody who is interested in reading it, just let me know. I don't know if I have the digital anymore, but I will certainly look. It's not too long, but yeah. And of course and of course all of this artistic flair is me, right? So I have this see-through piece of paper here on top that I printed out I took advantage of our professor letting us use free color printing to get these done, to print out a blood spatter. I thought I was very cool, right? And I put that on the outside to cover. And then this is just the inside cover. And the whole thing, like, she really encouraged us to play with formatting and to mess with like the structure of the book itself. And so that's kind of what I did. I can't, my gloves are too fat fingered too to get this, but you can kind of see. Yeah, see? So you've got like the red text on the left and the plain, you know, the regular like typography on the right. You know, just again, totally like My Chemical Romance inspired. That actually was the inspiration for the blood spatter on the cover. Was the oh geez, what album is it? Is it Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge? Where it's the blood spatter on their like faces. Anyway, yeah, no, I was so cool and edgy, TM. But I gotta be careful though, because it looks like the vinegar is taking off some of this ink. So I'm gonna go ahead and set this one aside. After giving it just like a little inspection, it looks pretty good to me. I am gonna want to press it though, so let me just put it inside of a larger book so that it can get pressed down a bit. Okay. So, next up we have Shadows and Moonshine. This is a book of short stories that are kind of written in the style of fairy tales. I really like it. They're a little dark, some of them, and they're a little like off-putting isn't the right word. It's just they take the fairy tale tropes that we all know and love, and he just does something to them that by the end you're really left like, wait a second, what just happened? Because your brain is so used to the patterns of these stories shaking out in such a way that when it doesn't, it's jarring. And I read this book in middle school, and so you'll have to, you know, kind of imagine, you're like, oh, so what? Inverted fairy tales, everybody does that. But like, this was kind of my first crack at it, you know, and there were no obvious references to typical fairy tales. There's no there's no Red Riding Hood or Hansel and Gretel or, you know, Sleeping Beauty in this one. It's all just the style of how the stories are being told that gives it that very whimsical fairy tale feel. And that, like, a lot of the characters are only really as deep as what they are. You know, so you have, like, the princess, the baker, the candlestick maker, right? And that's about as deep as it gets. Because they're all short stories. So it's not one long one. Let's see. Should we go next? Sure. This is an old print of Tamora Pierce's In the Hands of the Goddess. It's part of her Song of the Lioness quartet. Honestly, changed my life. Like, I read this series super young, and um, you just had Alana, who is this, you know, female heroine who doesn't want to be a lady. She wants to be a knight. But there are no lady knights, and it's illegal. Oh no. And so Alana, of course, like Mulans it up, right? And just dresses up as her twin brother in order to pretend to be a boy and enlist in the king's like fancy knight training at court or whatever. Um, and Alana is a badass, and I love her. That's her on the cover. And basically, like, at a certain point in the story, this isn't really a spoiler, this happens super early on. This goddess comes to her and is like, the world is whack, everything is like kind of weird and out of balance, and you're gonna be my champion to set things back to right. And it's really cool because Tamora even did a follow-up series that was set like hundreds and hundreds of years prior to this series, even though it came out much later. And it kind of explains what happened, like to cause the world to be out of balance in the first place. Like what it is that the goddess kind of was talking about when she is like, Alana, you gotta do the thing. Because Alana doesn't care. Alana don't give a shit. Alana don't care about your goddess mission. She's like, I'm here to sword fight and horse ride and adventure it up. I'm not here to do magic goddess missions, but too bad. Anyway, good times. It's really classic sword and sorcery. Alana is like your very prototypical, you know, knight errant with the sword and the horse and the magic. So if you're into like Tolkien, couldn't recommend this more. If you just wanted a series that was basically, I am no man, like the series, this is it. This is for you. And this is the old cover. I don't know if I have any of the reprinted cover that they came out with. In my opinion, this is the better one. The reprints kind of look like the art in them is just a little too contemporary for me, considering the type of story it is. And now we're back to Robin McKinley, right? She is the same author as the Hero in the Crown, the Blue Sword. This is her take on Sleeping Beauty. It's called Spindle's End. It's interesting. It doesn't really do anything like earth-shattering with the narrative. You know, there's not really like any big trope inversions. There's not really like a lot of finesse on the original story itself. It really is just kind of a playing it straight, but it's still very, very good. Robin McKinley has the perfect style for fairy tales and like epic fantasy. Very lyrical, almost like you're reading epic poetry. So, highly recommend it. Spence, you got C3 Clorand? That's so cool! I don't know if I'm gonna get her. I'm like 30 to 35 wishes into pity for my guaranteed, and there's just nothing left for me to do. Like, I finished the event. Okay, so see here on the edges of this page we have some staining and some discoloration. You can tell by the speckle pattern, right, that this is moisture. That's kind of causing this. It's getting like wicked up. So I am just gonna scrub really, really well, and of course that's gonna darken all of the pages because of the dampness, but again, we are not worried about the color here so much as we are just worried about the contamination. So as long as we work the acetic acid in really well, we should have no problems down the line. Really beautiful cover here. Cool electric booba. She is pretty cool. I do like her. Oh, here we have Spy Family. I know that like everybody, like at this point, everybody should know about Spy Family. If you don't know about Spy Family, where have you been? Um, it's a manga and an anime and a movie that's come out. But basically, this fellow, our main character, he is the spy of the titular Spy Family, and he has a mission that requires him to have a fake family. And so he enlists these two. This little girl to be his child. She is, unbeknownst to him, telepathic and can read minds. And her, who, again, unbeknownst to him, is an assassin for the enemy nation, who is murdering people. Good times. I'm not like totally caught up with the anime and the movie and all of that. Like I watched the first season of the anime, and I of course read the first couple of volumes of the manga. But then I liked it a lot, so I decided that it would be better to kind of wait until more of the story is out. I am a very impatient person, and some people might say, but Deanie, you read Aragon. And you waited for Eldest. And to that I say, yes, why do you think I'm scarred now? Okay? So, my favorite way to go about consuming media is to actually just not consume it at all if I know I'm gonna like it until the majority of it is out, or it's complete, or it's done. I just don't like to wait and not know. So it's better for me to just have none until it's all done. But I guess I kind of made an exception. Normally I would wait until and get these manga like resale, but I think I got this one as a little treat for myself for something, a little reward, because this is relatively new. And it's back to Naruto. Again, I have a lot of Naruto copies. It's not exactly because I went out seeking them. It's just because a lot of them started turning up at, used bookstores and garage sales and stuff like that. And they were super duper cheap. $3 or $4 was that price tag on that last one, and that was one that I had clearly gotten from like an actual used bookstore. But clearly if I was just going through like rummage sales and stuff, they could be super cheap. So for a while, I think I was just picking them up whenever I saw them before I kind of decided like, no, we're not gonna do this. This is gonna be way too much. We're just gonna collect the ones that have the actual content that we want. This one is actually looking pretty okay. We got a little bit of staining on the pages, but I don't even think that's actually from me. I think that might be a previously present stain. Wipe these down. Good. And then go ahead and try to dry that a little bit better. Yeah, Beck McMuffin is absolutely right. There are so many, and I probably have a very small fraction of the actual total number of volumes that are out. And don't even get me started on Boruto, because I won't. I'm not started on Boruto. I'm not doing it. All right, I liked Naruto while it lasted. I'm okay with letting the series go and not just continuing on in perpetuity for no reason. Okay, put that away. Alright, looks like we've got about 4 more. Kami-sama kiss. This one also looks kind of new. This is a more recent series anyway, so probably I did have to pick this one up, um, retail, but I think, again, it was a treat, because I think this is the last one. I think 15 is the last volume of this, so I think I might have just treated myself when the series finally wrapped up and gotten the last penultimate volume, just from direct retailers. Okay, just gonna wipe the pages down. Again, since this is a relatively new edition, not seeing a lot of staining, not seeing any discoloration. Looks very good. Intact. Oh. So, Naruto number 2. Get a good scrub. Fine. Book itself. And even though this is a relatively old edition, I am not seeing really any staining or discoloration. Side pages, a little yellowing, right? But that is to be expected. That's just from being, you know, open to the air and sunlight. It's gonna happen over time. Okay. Number 3. Let's scrub. You know, I think like manga collections and comic book collections, it kind of makes sense because there's going to be illustrations in those that you might want to look at, and reference in the future. But when it comes to like collecting books and collecting novels and kind of collecting anything when at all in general, there's always going to be this question of like space and physicality, because a lot of people when they're collecting don't really take into consideration what comes after you do the collecting, right? All collections, whether they be museum quality pieces being stored in, right, like climate controlled safe locations, or whether or not they're like your friend's Gundam models that he keeps on his bookshelf in his room, there's always going to be upkeep, and there's always going to be ongoing kind of care required. And a lot of times you don't see the damage, or you don't see the effects of aging for many, many years on especially like modern products, like a manga printed, you know, with modern ink and technology, right? But even this you can see, right? This is volume 3, and you can definitely tell that there's some fading in the ink, especially on the spine where it would have been the most exposed to light. And there's some yellowing like on the pages, and of course for me that's not an issue. But if that were the kind of thing that was a problem, you'd have to look into, right, like having certain types of lighting and having certain levels of like oxidation control and stuff like that. It could get very tough. And so a collection for me has to be something that is not stagnant. It has to be something that I am engaging with on a regular enough basis that it is going to make me A, notice when things need maintenance, and B, like be motivated to do that maintenance. Naruto number 1, here he is. Um, and I had to think about that a lot when I was going through the larger collection. And I know you guys, what is this? What did we do? Like 4 hours last time, another yesterday, 5, 6, so like 7 or 8. After about a whole day's work of cleaning these books, you must be thinking like, golly, lady, how many more could there possibly have been? And let me tell you, the answer might frighten you. No, but honestly, I had to throw away, and I hate to say that. I wish I could have donated them, but I couldn't have, in good conscience, donated a bunch of poisonous, contaminated books. Not quite in the millions, Spence. Not quite, but maybe someday. But certainly, more than would fit in your average truck. So I had to decide, in terms of my book collection, which books are going to be worth keeping to me, not necessarily because of their value as objects, but more as their value as a collection, a collection of material that I am going to be caring for and meticulously upkeeping. And for me, as a DM, I find that having a lot of books and a lot of neat ideas that I can reference quickly, and especially visually, like just by glancing around my room, to be extremely helpful. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have had to like pull a book down off the shelf, open it to a random page, and use the first name to appear on that page as like the NPC name of the guy that my party is all of a sudden super interested in talking to. And so that's the value to me. And so a lot of the times I will keep these physical books for that express purpose. And I find that, like, if possible, if it's just the text that I'm interested in, then, even though it broke my heart to do it, I had to tell myself, hey, you could always replace this with a ebook pretty easily, right? Like, financially, it's just not feasible for me to repurchase all of my books, but it would be pretty doable to track them all down and download digital copies of them. Not only would that save me space, but I would also be able to, my collection would be searchable, right? In terms of a data management perspective, that would certainly be nice. But a digital database is, again, not going to have that utility that I was just talking about, right? Where I can glance around my room and visually see options. And so that is what I kind of try to also prioritize in my living, breathing, physical copy, collection. The Great Library of Deanie, Books in the Trillions. Yes. Okay, so a DM and a GM, Dungeon Master versus Game Master. A Dungeon Master is something very specific, depending on your context. And I think DM is also maybe the original term coined by Dungeons and Dragons, because back in the day, right, like there were other tabletop role-playing games, but Dungeons and Dragons kind of came onto the scene and took over the space, and they had to invent kind of on the fly a lot of the lingo that we kind of take for granted now. Initiative, all of that. Like they kind of came up with all of, what those words were going to mean. And so they wanted something more specific for Dungeons and Dragons players, to identify other Dungeons and Dragons players, not just players of these other tabletop role-playing games that already exist. And so Dungeon Master, right, is therefore more specific of a term than Game Master, which is what GM stands for. So if you're a GM, you could theoretically master any game, right? Like you could be running Pathfinder, you could be doing Shadowrun, you could be doing, you know, oh god, you could be doing Sector 4, right, with Eoneth, and that would still be considered a game master. But a dungeon master, right, like, that goes back to people wanting to be more specific and wanting to more directly say, I am the game master of a Dungeons and Dragons table, or, you know, whatever else you're into. Now, like, mechanically, is there any difference? Not really. Not that I can think of. You know, other than the differences in the mechanics of the games you're playing. Um, you know, certainly there are some role-playing systems where the master role is more active and some where it's more passive. And there are some RPGs, TRPGs now that are completely masterless, right? Like there's no GM at all. They're run by like random card decks or something. Very cool. I definitely want to play one on this channel at some point. I just haven't been able to kind of find one that fits the right vibes. But yeah, like in terms of mechanics, you know, oh, a DM is this and a GM is that. Not really. It just, again, depends on the game. And of course, there's play style if they like to be more active or not. The Seagull role-playing game? I don't think that one had a GM. I don't think you can master seagulls. I could be wrong. Right. Oh, that's right. So Clorand. For those of you guys who don't know, this most recent character quest in Genshin with the new character Clorand, we discover that her hobby, the character's hobby, is basically the Genshin Impact fantasy version of a tabletop role-playing game, Dungeons and Dragons. And Clorand likes to be a GM, a game master. I really like their version of Genshin D&D because it was so immersive. But I just thought it was so funny. Yeah, Clorand can be my DM anytime. Midsummer Night's Dream, of course. This is a like annotated copy because I can't not have the explanations like right next to the text. I think I got this in high school. Puck very quickly became like one of my favorite literary characters of all time. Take from that what you will. Judge me if you must. Maybe it explains some things. Here we have Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. This is actually the original. This is the book that the anime movie from Studio Ghibli is based on. Diana Wynne Jones is another British author. She does kind of what I would call like whimsy fantasy with also like a hidden gut punch, so kind of like Pratchett in that regard. You know, she's got her gags and her funny jokes, and then of course just socks you right in the gut with the feels. You don't even see it coming because of all of the good jokes. Sure thing. Beck Muffin, you are welcome to borrow anything from the collection, especially since it's not like you can it's not like you can be late with returning them or anything. I also, does this one have no, this one does not have its library card in it yet, so we'll fix that, before loaning out anything. But that, and then, okay. So you guys should have been anticipating this. There was gonna be a cozy mystery eventually. There was just no way there was not going to be. I think we've already seen a couple of these. The Cat Who, bop bop bop, whatever. It's a series by Lillian Jackson Braun. They are these cozy mysteries that are all solved by a pair of Siamese cats. The cats don't talk or anything. They're not magical. They're just regular cats. It's the fact that their owner is an ex-crime reporter, and he, in their body language and in their activities, kind of puts together clues. That is what I mean when I say like the cats, solve the mystery. But this is one of my favorite series. It's getting kind of up there in years, so usually I'm able to find at least one. There's dozens and dozens of them. Oh my god. But I'm usually able to find at least one in almost every like resale bookstore I've ever been in. So that's always like a fun little scavenger hunt for me, and always like a guaranteed win. I kind of am like, well, even if I don't find anything really exciting, at least I know, I'll be able to find some Cat Who, right? And so if you guys ever see these, I think I'm still missing a few. This is the Cat Who Knew a Cardinal, and I think the last one we looked at was, hang on. That was the Cat Who Sang for the Birds, right? Okay. And I think there's a few others, but I'll show you guys. You'll see them all eventually as we clean them that I have left. And your super fun secret librarian mission is going to be to check out your own local resale bookstores and your own local library, rummage sales, and see if you can find any copies of this, because especially since there is 2 printings. There are the original art, and then there's a reprint that uses just super cringy, like, generic MS Paint assets. They're horrible. I think the original covers are much cuter, and I would absolutely love it if you guys found any of the older prints that I don't have and can't find. Because I like to make a game of it for myself, right? Like, I know I could just go on Amazon or Barnes & Noble and order the whole set if I wanted to. But this is more special, I think. There's legacy to these ones. Okay, here we go. Not to mention, speaking of legacy, look at the cover on this. This is the first book in the Song of the Lioness quartet that we were just talking about. And as you can tell by the gorgeous cover art, right, this is the first printing. I guarantee you, if I do have any of the reprints, or if you find them, it's just not the same. It does not look right. It just looks way too like edgy TM. She can borrow my cats the same way I can borrow the books. True. I've solved my cat's crimes. And Spence has unsolved cat crimes. Okay. Get the edges. For such an old book, this one actually is in great shape. It's in better shape than some of the manga too. Probably because I take it out less. But again, like, these are these beautiful art covers that I just feel like are worth having, as opposed to a digital copy. Let's see, what should we do next? Oh, actually, haha. Hero in the Crown. Again. I don't know where this came from, but I've lived with different people, right? And they've had libraries of their own and collections and stuff, and we've combined books and separated books and this, that, the other thing. I don't think this is mine, because I don't remember putting a fold in this like that, but that does beg the question of where it came from. And how in the process of downsizing I could have possibly somehow accrued a stowaway. I don't know. Listen. Yorick wanted to come with me. He told me. Okay, sure. Let's do some more cat who. Oof, so this one's in rough shape. It did not end up in the bin quite right. So we are going to have to repress this one. But again, this is that original art. The cat who talked to ghosts. And look how cute this is with this little ghost, the little cat paw prints. Little murder, little mystery. Little Siamese cats. To be fair, my friend accidentally stole 2 things of sparkling water from the grocery store. Okay, you know, we've all walked out of stores with things, you know, from the store. It happens. Wipe that down, get the back. Stole a Quasimodo. Oh, the friend of yours stole Quasi, not you. Spence is innocent of these crimes. Have the cat who knew Shakespeare. It's always some funny, like, gag in the title, too. Like, the cat who knew Shakespeare. Okay, I get it. Haha, it's a double entendre because it's like, it kind of makes it sound like he knew Shakespeare personally, but at the same time, obviously referring to, like, knowing the works of Shakespeare, but then ha 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 because it's a cat, so how could that be possible? So here we have, I think this is glue on the edge of this. Not much we can do about that. It has just been saturated with moisture, so I'm gonna just hope it dries up. Again, I'm not really worried about this discoloration. It'll lighten as it dries. And it's not like it'll be illegible even if it doesn't. But yeah, see, again, this is the original art with the Hamlet on the cover and the little bloody paw prints on the page. I love that. And stole some Christmas ornaments? Spence, what is going on? Your buddy maybe needs a buddy. A sobriety buddy. Oh, okay, here we go. I do have. So here is the reprint of Alana, Song of the Lioness. How horrible is this? This is crime. This is criminal. Look, we went from gorgeous, like, painted, like, very, you know, kind of medieval Renaissance looking, like, illuminated pages kind of style, perfectly fitting for a medieval knight's sword and sorcery adventure, to this, like, computer graphics, black field edgelord nonsense. And I don't care for it. I don't care for it at all. Go. Listen, stealing is fun and profitable. And as long as you do it responsibly, there are no victims. But I'm not endorsing stealing. Stealing is illegal and you shouldn't do it. But I could understand why some people apparently like to steal things. It doesn't have anything, to do with necessarily being evil or like greedy and wanting like to hoard things or get things you don't deserve. It mostly has to do with just wanting to be a little tricky, a little tricksy, wanting to just grab something in the moment and you just slip it in your pocket. Just put it in your pocket. Feels great, and you instantly are just having a better day. Just saying, I could understand, potentially, theoretically, hypothetically. Some limes. Yeah, listen, again, there's always a way to play it off, right? Like, as long as everybody's being chill, you just be like, oh, my bad, I forgot. It happens all the time, right? People walk out with stuff all the time, so no big deal. You're just like, all right. Just don't be trying to steal stuff like liquor or drugs. That's never gonna go well. But yeah, look at the other. So here it gives you like a little preview of the horrors you'd be in for. On the other books. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. Lioness Rampant, the remake does kind of slay. She is kind of a boss ass bitch in that one. But in the hands of the goddess, come on, that was the one we just saw, and that's horrible. Ugh, gosh, I'm so mad. Why did they do this to you? Song of the Lioness Quartet. You deserved better. Ooh, this one will be fun. Speaking of books I would like to read on stream, even though we weren't, this book, if you want some short, extremely spooky, disturbing vibes, you're gonna pick this up. Alright, I picked this up because I think technically it was a YA at the time. Let me just tell you right now, I don't know that being any age at all would prepare you mentally, psychically, spiritually for the contents of Miss Link's weird little brain. But whatever she's cooking, I'm here for it. I'm eating up because that shit's weird. But it's also just extremely unique. I have, even in all of my reading and all of my gaming, not really come across anything even remotely similar to some of her short stories she's got in here. I mean, very much harkening back to Neil Gaiman's collections, Neil Gaiman's short story collections, in terms of like the fantastical whimsy and yet also downright spooky fantasy elements. And the nice thing is they're all short stories, so they could, we could finish one in an evening. And I definitely think that as we get closer to fall, that might be in the cards. Or, maybe if we can find a good, like, summer-themed one for a summer campfire-themed, like, ghost story night. That could be fun. You finished producing food. Amazing. What are you producing? What have you produced? The cleaning is going. We're making our way downtown. An hour? Oh, we'll maybe go for another 20 minutes or so. Make it a nice even 2 hours. Ooh, okay, these are a great book. Do next. Okay. Haha! speaking of graphic novels, this is Valor. It's a anthology of comics and short stories, and just regular stories that all feature, they kind of have a fantasy fairy tale theme, but are very much in the spirit of and the princess rescues herself. You feel me? Like, this is, if you recognize the art on the cover, it's by the author of Namesake. For those of you who are into webcomics. There's also a lot of other, like, very talented artists in here that you will see who contributed. It's not just the one. And it's just, there's a lot of really clever takes in here. And it's, in certain stories, unapologetically queer. Very positive and affirming for the most part. And I think it really goes to the core of a certain genre of fairy tale that is kind of like instructional in how it demonstrates that even against supernatural odds, your average milkmaid or woodsman or, what have you can overcome, these challenges just with your wit and your heart and your tenacity, that kind of affirming message. And I really like that from my fairy tales. So extremely, extremely fun. I got mine as part of a Kickstarter, I think. So I don't know. Here you have some different, like a little preview of some of the different artists, right? Art styles. There's some pros. Look at how gorgeous. So I got mine from I think a Kickstarter, but I think you can just buy them outright. I think they're print to order. I mean, they're expensive because they're full color, high gloss pages. But honestly, it's about the same price as your average, like, hardcover, roughly 300, 400 page novel. So not too bad. Not bad at all, in my opinion. But yeah, so that's Valor, right? And so this did so much. This, like, just kind of went crazy online and did the circuits, and everybody's kind of losing their mind. And so they got together again for Valor's second edition, right? Because this doesn't even have a first edition on it because they didn't know they were going to make more than one. And so the response was so huge that they came out with a second edition. They called it Valor Wands to kind of do like a tarot theme. And as you can see, like, another gorgeous, gorgeous cover with a green motif this time instead of the, like, pink and red. And you can see the spine here, Valor 2 Wands. And just look how gorgeous. I mean, again, just because the first one did so well and people just wanted more and more artists wanted to participate. And they got set back really badly, unfortunately, as a result of COVID. One of the main artists got long COVID and has really, really, really been struggling. And so even though it was supposed to go to print years ago, they are only just now starting to get around to printing volume 3, which they're calling Cups, of course, because the tarot. So Valor 1 is swords. This volume 2 is wands. Volume 3 is cups. And even though it will bother me forever because it's not going to be the full set, I kind of doubt they're going to do coins at this point. A 4th edition to round out the classic tarot suits. just because the artist's situation, and how much COVID has impacted them, unless they're able to maybe swap her out for somebody else and she would be willing to like take a step back. Um, but um, these are all, like I said, these are all Kickstarter initiatives. Look how pretty that is. I'm so glad that these were okay. I'm really, really glad that these survived. Look at her. And like I said, just a focus on um, female and feminine protagonists, mainly interested in saving themselves. A lot of sapphic and queer, kind of messaging. A lot of body positivity. Very cool stuff. So I will keep you guys posted when I get my copy of Cups, and we shall just have to kind of wait and see if they end up going for the full set. Oh, so not a book, but still needs to be cleaned very well, is my Tea Dragon Society card game. I know that the last time we had one of these cleanings, we did the Tea Dragon Society picture book that I love to pieces. It's so beautiful, and I love the story and the whimsy of it all. And this is a card game, like a little deck building game that is based on the concept of raising these little baby tea dragons. And it's very, in my opinion, easy to pick up. It does not take a whole lot of brain power or concentration to kind of get the gist of the rules and the strategy. And that leaves a lot of brain power left over for me to just love how cute the cards are, and be talking to everyone, and socializing and stuff. So it can be a really fun like party game in a group. I also have the expansion for it somewhere around here. Actually, you know what, I should get this opened up and look inside. Oh god, everything just smells like vinegar. Okay, that was silly. Let's see. Comes with this little booklet. These are the cards themselves. Everything looks good. I don't see any signs of moisture or any culture growths in here, so we are just gonna box that back up. Put that away. Grab a little sippy sip of my drink. Nothing like some Red Bull mixed with your medication at 11 p.m. Is it my own fault for mixing my medication with the Red Bull in the first place? Maybe so. What are you, a cop? Let's see. Ooh. This is a fun one. So this is a coloring book by one of my favorite, speaking of memoirs, one of my favorite memoir writers of all time, Jenny Lawson. She has 2 books out currently, I think. One is Let's Just Pretend This Never Happened. And there's another one called Furiously Happy. She might have another one. Those 2 I have read are uproariously funny. I mean, she is just a lady after my own heart, in terms of knowing how to tell an extremely traumatic story in a very funny voice. And she also has a blog where she goes by the Bloggess. But I really know her primarily through Beck Muffin, who recommended her books to me. Um, and I listened to them on audio. So she read them herself for Audible. And so I got the absolute treat of listening to her tell her own just insane trauma stories in her very humorous, very tongue-in-cheek, lighthearted way. And it was just a great time. I mean, she really is a very funny, down-to-earth lady who just has seen some weird things, has had lots of weird things, embarrassing things happen, and she really just gets you on this level of humility and grace. So I highly, highly recommend you checking out her full-length books that are her memoirs or her blog. This, however, is a little treat. I don't know if it is still available or if it's out of print now. Um, but she kind of worked on this as it says, "You Are Here, a owner's manual for dangerous minds." And that is because Jenny Lawson has anxiety and depression. You know, she struggles with the neurospicy, the mental illness. And you know, she thought that it would be helpful for her readers and her audience, right, who also suffer, to make this sort of Zen coloring book, right? So it's got these beautiful like illustrations that you can color, but it also has these like affirming words and these quotes, right? It says, if you cannot teach me to sing, then teach me to curse beautifully. Like, mwah, chef's kiss, no notes. Reading this entitles you to one wish, but it is a wish for a stranger, one you will never meet, one who will never know you wished it for them. Go now, close your eyes, make a wish for a stranger. Good. Whatever it was that you wished for, you deserve that too, and I wish it for you. And that's how the world turns. Like, oh, Jenny, that was so sweet. Like, ah. And so, you know, if you're having anxiety, if you're feeling depressed, and you just, you know, you need some activity to kind of help you cope, um, you know, sitting and focusing on one of these can be very grounding. And I think that's what she had intended for her, you know, her audience that connected with her on that level of having anxiety and having mental illness. Oh, wait, I think there was a colored one still in here. I think I saw it for like half a second. There we go. And of course, they just, because the illustrations themselves are amazing, they come out amazing. I mean, this isn't even done and it looks so cool. You are here. There is a safe place inside of you. Go there. Be still. Be calm. Take comfort. Have some enchiladas. Yum. Aw. Yours is lost. Well, let's see if they have them still. I don't know if if they're still in, like, for sale. If they're still in print. Okay. Why don't we kind of wrap up? This will be our last book. And to finish at a completely hard left, we're going for The Four Laws by Peter Atkins. And this was actually my some of my required reading for my environmental engineering class, the very first one that I took. Um, and that was because there was a pretty significant section devoted to thermodynamics. And you might be asking yourself, Self, what does thermodynamics have to do with environmental engineering? Isn't that all like building dams and stuff? And yes, it's true, but also thermodynamics is really important for one specific area of um, environmental engineering in particular, and that is remediation. Because when you are designing a remediation project, and basically that's what we're doing right now, right? Like, we are doing remediation, there's been an environmental contamination, and we are doing the remediation work. And so when you specifically are in the area of environmental engineering that is around remediation, you really need to be aware of certain concepts in thermodynamics, and one of them is sort of this energy economy. Your remediation project is going to require resources and energy be put in. And this is both like, in terms of like economically, but also literally in the form of whatever chemical process you're going to do to clean up, let's say it's an oil spill, or even what we're doing right now, right? Like, I'm using this reaction of the acetic acid with the mycotoxin to render it inert. And in addition to just, the act of that reaction, I'm having to spend energy, mechanical energy, on scrubbing each book by hand, because the distribution method. And so when you're proposing or designing a remediation project, you have to be extremely aware of the inputs and outputs, and that concept in and of itself is what, kind of caused me to limit the scope of my own remediation project, right? Like, I knew that the time and energy that I was going to have to put in, I was not going to get back anywhere remotely near, and it just wasn't going to be feasible or possible. And so that's like a big way of thinking about it, but there's also like the nitty-gritty, right? So a lot of remediation projects have to do with toxic sites and chemical spills, and you literally have to take the chemistry into mind. Oh, this has got some nasty staining here, so let's go ahead and scrub the surface of that. And unfortunately, the reason that remediation is so hard is because most of the time you're trying to make a reaction go uphill both ways in a snowstorm, for lack of a better word. Like, you're trying to force a reaction to happen that is very energy intense and is not at all the state that the elements or the molecules involved want to be in. And I say want, but like, again, this goes back to thermodynamics. Everything, quote unquote, wants to be at its lowest energy state. Everything trends towards that. And so a lot of times, cleanups and stuff that have to happen are fighting an uphill battle, right? Because not only are they resource intensive, time intensive, and labor intensive, but they also are energy intensive from a molecular standpoint, because you are trying to force molecules and atoms to be at a higher energy level than they would like to be naturally. I don't know if that's making any sense. I'm not Mr. Adkins. I might not have done a very good job of explaining what is essentially an extremely complicated thermodynamic principle. Uh, Anyway, I know I said that this was required reading for a college course, but the reason I bring that up at all and the reason I kept it is because it's an extremely approachable it's a little book, you know, very small, not too expensive, and he really does a good job of explaining these concepts way better than I do. And like, I know it's such a goofy looking, like, the four laws, like, it kind of looks like he's about to tell you the secret, right? But I promise that's not what this is about. He's just gonna talk about science and math and chemistry. Sorry. No. No life coaching here. Okay. I think we will make that our last one. And then very carefully pull the glove off without messing up the lining. Since we all want alchemy. That would be awesome. Alright, let's see who's around. Ooh! Tolatier is playing Honkai Star Rail. Cursed Plum Tree is playing Baldur's Gate. Mer Dragoon is writing. Yeah, let's go hang out with Mer. Murder! Judas, no! No, sorry. Let's see. Channel. I would love it if you guys would hang out and stick around for the raid. Mer, or Mer Dragoon, is super cool, does a lot of writing and gaming, kind of similar to what we like over here. Such a sweetie, very much friendly and approachable, very creative. I think you guys would have a great time just like chilling. And hopefully whatever they're doing is not, let's see. Okay, it's like 3 hours, so probably gonna be on for a little bit longer. As always, thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. This has been such a traumatic experience, and it's made just a little bit better by everybody coming and hanging out while I ramble about all of my favorite books. To kind of take my mind off why I'm having to ramble about all of my favorite books. I am going to probably have at least one more of these before getting into the next tote. And fingers crossed, our next stream will be another Leviathan's read-along. So stay tuned for that, because our girls have just taken off in an airship. And we don't know what's going to happen. So tune in. I am really looking forward to it. Talk to you guys later.
So let me see something.